ocean is a mysterious world.
After a very successful 2022, DreamWorks Animation is back in theaters with its latest film, Ruby Gillman: Teenage Kraken. In the battle between mermaids and Kraken, who is truly heroic, who's secretly a villain, and who lies somewhere in between? I'm Kyle with Wicked Binge, and this is Ruby Gillman: Teenage Kraken: Good to Evil. Now, major spoilers ahead for this film. And as always, we're gonna start with our most heroic and noble character and work our way down to the most evil. These characters are the Good. Starting out with the recipient of our Gold Medal of Good, we have Nessie. Nessie is the Gillman family pet. A silly-looking sea creature that acts like a typical dog. It's pretty typical for pets in animated films to be one of the more pure-hearted characters in them, and Nessie is no exception. He shows a ton of love to his entire family, especially Ruby, and we even see him comforting her when she's really upset. He also actively goes out of his way to help his family, like pretending to be a sleeping Ruby when her mother checks up on her, or playing the role of an attacking Kraken baby in the plan to distract Captain Gordon from the actual Kraken hunt. No matter how you slice it, Nessie is very much a good boy and certainly deserves the top spot. Next up, our Silver Medal of Good has to go to Uncle Brill. When we first meet Brill, he sort of comes off as that typical goofy family member, making us expect that he's going to be obnoxious and just get in the way. But while he can be a bit dopey and is certainly used as comedy relief, the guy has a good heart. He cares a ton about his sister Agatha, and encourages her to try and at least talk to their mother instead of continuing to hide from her.
But, you know royals.
Brill also helps out with the Captain Gordon distraction plan, and when it looks like his niece may be in trouble, it's Brill who encourages Ruby to get back up, reminding her just how much her mother cares about her. Really, the fact that Brill is never shown being jealous of the women in his family despite all the powers and attention they get, and is instead their biggest cheerleader, just shows how big of a heart this goofy uncle has. For our Bronze Medal of Good, we're giving it to Arthur Gillman, Ruby's father. Arthur is a pretty simple guy and is certainly a bit more laid back compared to his wife. He spends his days working at a shop and making ship-in-a-bottle streams, and he's shown being incredibly proud of his family. When things start to get stressful between his wife and daughter, it's Arthur who tries to keep a cool head and keep his family together. It's also Arthur who leads the distraction team, making sure Captain Gordon's Kraken hunt is taken completely off course in order to protect Ruby. Although he's unable to go big like the women Kraken and his family, Arthur still tries to help out in the film's climax too, doing what he can to try and support his wife in the fight against Chelsea. Much like Brill, Arthur shows that you don't need to be a mighty warrior to be a heroic person. You just need to know how to be a good and supportive family member. Moving over to the human side of things, we have Margot. Of all the kids in Ruby's friend group, the dramatic and theatrical Margot seems to be the one that Ruby is closest to. Much like Miriam in Pixar's Turning Red, Margot is all about being that support for Ruby, encouraging her to take a chance and live her life, even if it technically means being a bit of a bad influence, given that she tells Ruby to sneak out to prom when her mother says she can't go.
Your mom doesn't have to know.
She also helps Ruby with her promposal to Connor, giving her advice regarding it. Even after Ruby begins to ditch Margot and the rest of their friend group to hang out with Chelsea, Margot doesn't hesitate to forgive her when Ruby apologizes at prom, assuring that they'll always be there for her and that she doesn't need to hide anything about herself from them. Really, the only not so great moment with Margot is when, after being asked by another girl in school to go with her, Margot says that she's going to go to prom without Ruby. However, considering just how many water-adjacent events Margot and the other members of the Friend Squad had to give up just to keep Ruby company on land, this feels less like a betrayal and more like a reasonable boundary, one that's even understandable to Ruby. Speaking of Ruby Gillman, the so-called normal teen turned Kraken princess is next on our list. Although incredibly shy and awkward, Ruby is very spirited and sweet. Her mother at one point tells a story about how a younger Ruby stayed with a beached whale for several hours, keeping him wet with hose water until the tides came back in. This anecdote, along with the fact that Ruby tutors students in math in her free time, shows just how kind she is. Ruby is also shown being brave, both in how she jumps into the water to save a drowning Connor in spite of being afraid, and in how she tries to do what she can to stop the fighting between mermaids and Kraken. But while Ruby has many good traits that lead her to ultimately being the film's hero in the end when she leads the charge in destroying the Trident once and for all, she is still a teenager, resorting to lying and sneaking out when she's feeling frustrated with and betrayed by her mom. She can also be a bit selfish and single-minded at times, such as when she ditches and ignores her friends to focus on getting the Trident with Chelsea. although this was more accidental than blatant and outright malicious. Ultimately, these flaws don't take too much away from the teen-turned-ocean protector that Ruby ends up being.
I definitely wasn't expecting the whole queen thing.
Though she does earn the Lust Sinner medal through her huge crush on Connor, being probably the most love-struck character in the whole film, even if getting a date is not the only goal on her mind. Nearing the end of our good section is Ruby's brother, Sam Gilman. Being in the second grade and having a bit of a hyperactive personality, it should be no surprise that the film has him in the role of the typical annoying little brother. Along with being a dodgeball fanatic, Sam's other main focus seems to be on teasing his big sister, either by poking fun at her crush or by asking invasive questions after her hidden Kraken abilities make their appearance. But while Sam can be a bit insensitive, he's willing to fight for his family, joining his father when they go out in a boat to try to support Ruby, Agatha, and Grandmama in the final big fight against Chelsea. He is a whiz with dodgeballs and will gladly use them to protect his family. And rounding out our good section, we have Connor, Ruby's skater boy crush, and there really isn't much to him. He has the standard cool and chill vibes, brushing off Ruby's strangeness and even finding her awkwardness adorable, while also being shown to greatly appreciate her tutoring. Later on, he tries to ask Ruby to prom, and although she essentially blows him off, much like Margot, he doesn't hold this against her and is happy to dance with her when she finally makes it to the big event. As nice as Connor can be though, other than being the seemingly perfect person for Ruby for being understanding and nice, he really doesn't do or add all too much, hence why we can't rank him any higher. We also feel he sort of earns our sloth medal, as while he may not be typically lazy, he's not really shown going out of his way to do anything interesting or helpful, and he even gets damseled in the first act of the movie. With the good section wrapped up, we now move into more neutral territory. These characters fall in the moral gray area. Let's start off by finishing off Ruby's friend group with Trevin and Bliss. Trevin is a gamer guy, while Bliss, despite her name, is a goth girl. Much like Connor, both of them are pretty basic characters who don't really do all too much other than add in a bit of commentary, playing into the grim character archetype. Bliss is seen catastrophizing throughout the movie, though she tries not to do it too much for the sake of her friends. Trevin, meanwhile, is nice enough, though he does share Captain Gordon's video of Ruby in her Kraken form, causing it to go viral. Obviously, he didn't do this purposefully to hurt Ruby, given that he didn't know it was her, but it still wasn't great. Ultimately, though, they stand alongside Margot in showing their support for Ruby, which is nice to see, even if they tend to sort of blend into the background during the rest of the film. So let's move on to a character who has a much bigger role, Agatha Gilman, Ruby's overprotective mother. Back when she was cool, Agatha was the ocean's mightiest Kraken warrior, being the one to defeat the mermaids after stealing back and hiding away the trident. After deciding to carve out her own path for the sake of her daughter, however, this warrior turned real estate agent became pretty overprotective, always insisting that Ruby and the rest of their family act as normal as possible, and telling Ruby over and over to stay out of the ocean.
Humans don't know everything about the ocean.
This led to Agatha repeatedly lying and hiding certain truths about the royal Kraken side from Ruby for the sake of protecting her, which just made things worse. It took Ruby actively putting herself in danger for Agatha to fully face her past instead of just trying to push Ruby towards what was best for her. But for all the mistakes that Agatha made, she's still a caring mother who would do anything for her family. She helps Ruby calm down after she goes big for the first time, and even though she hates fighting and being around her own mother, Agatha still steps up to fight Chelsea in the film's climax. Although very flawed in her methods, she's far from a bad mother and certainly isn't a bad person. The same could possibly be said about Grandmama, the warrior queen of the Seven Seas. Based on what the film implies, she used to be much worse, having a bad temper and being incredibly pushy and controlling for the sake of assuring the ocean had a Kraken that could protect it. There are still inklings of this, especially in her brief interactions with Agatha, where she voices her disapproval of Agatha's life choices.
Your mother never told you you were royalty?
But Grandmama herself says that she goes to therapy twice a week to try and control her anger, and while she does try to train Ruby into a warrior, she only does this after Ruby outright asks for training. She still isn't perfect, as she can still be somewhat dismissive of both Agatha and Brill. Additionally, even though they do make up somewhat, we also never see her thoroughly apologize for all she allegedly put Agatha through. We don't get specifics, but it was enough to make Agatha hate her, so it must have been pretty bad. Still, in the end, she's willing to compromise regarding Ruby's surface life instead of pushing her to just be a Kraken, so at least there's that. She also definitely earns the Pride Medal for her royal attitude and focus on glory and her family's legacy as warriors, plus her very egotistical vibes. And finishing off the gray area characters, we have Captain Gordon Lighthouse. First introduced as a rusty old sailor in Oceanside who works as a tour guide, Gordon becomes a side antagonist of sorts after he spots Ruby in her Kraken form and makes it his mission to hunt her down. Despite being the only one in Oceanside who's obsessed with stopping the evil beasts, he's still fooled by the Gilman's human disguises, making him an easy contender for the Darwin Medal as far as we're concerned. Seriously, you think a so-called expert wouldn't buy the whole "we're from Canada" lie. Still, this does lead to him forming a bit of a camaraderie with Arthur, Brill, and Sam when they become his crew.
Time for the Gordon Special!
When he does eventually learn the truth, Gordon does end up switching sides, although this is implied to mostly be done out of fear, given that he begs Arthur not to eat him when their cover is finally blown. Gordon is also shown making an apology video, so even if his own opinions on Kraken still aren't the most progressive, he's at the very least making sure others don't see them as complete monsters. We finally made it to our bad to evil section, although it's a pretty small one this time around, as there's only one true villain in the film. Our gold medal of evil is going to Chelsea Vander Zee, also known as Evil Ariel by the internet. Chelsea is the popular new girl at Oceanside High, first making a big splash by taking the credit for Ruby's rescue of Connor. Chelsea is seen throughout the film being a total manipulator, always hiding her true intentions with a sweet smile. From pushing Ruby into being rebellious to trying to gain sympathy with a fake backstory about her dead mother, Chelsea is all about doing whatever she needs to in order to get what she wants. And what she wants is to get revenge on Agatha and rule over the ocean. Once she reveals her true colors, Chelsea, or rather Queen Nerissa, is shown to be incredibly cruel, callous, and selfish. Not only is she willing to hurt Ruby after pretending to be her best friend, but she also nearly drowns the students on the prom boat, not really caring about anyone other than herself and getting a kick out of causing panic and destruction. While perhaps a bit on the cliche and predictable side, not at all being helped by the film's spoilerific advertising, it still doesn't change the fact that Chelsea is evil through and through. Despite her claims about simply being pretty and misunderstood, her power-hungry nature and 15-year-long quest for revenge also earns her the Wrath Medal, as well as the Greed Medal, both of which are also well-deserved in her case.